You're listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Kamunya here, and we are back with episode 44 of the Money Monopolizers podcast, and I'm here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today?
Simple. I'm mind blown, bro, honestly. Bro, this episode right here, the people that we getting on here are honestly getting better and better every week, because this guy right here, his mind, I'm going to tell y'all right now, this is not going to be a how-to guide or anything like that. This is a legit mindset episode right here. So the guest we got, I'm gonna let you introduce him, but his whole philosophy on how he attacks his life, and it's just so different than the way the standard person thinks. And he talks about how to get out of your own normal and how abnormal needs to become your new normal. We go so far in depth, but I want to first let you introduce him. We'll talk a little bit more about him after.
Yeah, fact. Real quick before we get into that, I do want to cover some housekeeping real quick as far as kind of what we got going on and those kind of things. Excuse me. So like I said a couple episodes ago, just closed the first flip 100 that was funded with 100% private money. So no money out of our pockets. Shout out to the podcast for that, and shout out to the private investors and all those people that's been able to lend money and get a better ROI on their money than what they're getting from their savings and even their 401ks. So, been able to raise over $150,000 in private money to fund our deals. And so the first one we just, closed on that a couple weeks ago, and the rehab has been moving. And I would say the house is almost, 80 to 90% complete. Should be done within, by next week or the week after. Just putting the finishing touches on that, and then we're gonna get it listed on the market and get that thing sold. But the reason I'm mentioning this because it was funny, because when I was looking on that neighborhood, or I was looking at the houses on that street, and I saw a house down the street, 3 houses down, and there was a for sale by owner sign in front of the house. And so obviously being inquisitive, I inquired about it, and of course the owner was looking to get rid of it. He was an older, landlord that had a bunch of properties, and he was retiring, and he's trying to unload everything so he can just, go work on his passion, which was actually repairing cars and restoring cars. So he just wanted the cash to do that. And so, we was able to, get a deal done. We negotiated a price, and it's going to be a fantastic deal. And it's literally 3 or 4 houses down the street from the one that's down that other street. So that's probably gonna be our best deal to date, just based off of the numbers and the analysis we ran. Another one that's funded 100% with private money too. So we're definitely getting these things pumped out now. So but yeah, the reason I say that is just a lot of people say I got lucky on that deal in terms of finding that deal, but what do we always say is luck? It's when preparation meets opportunity. And by me just being inquisitive and looking around and seeing what else is around in that area, just wanting to know more about the area, you find those deals, and those things come to you. You can call it lucky, but if I wasn't looking, I wouldn't have found it. So yeah. That's kind of.
I wanted to comment on that because I remember we used to have luck as an acronym, LUCK, laboring under correct knowledge.
Yeah.
We used to talk about how if you have the knowledge of how to obtain a good deal, and you are actively doing the things that will bring you that good deal, luck will find you. And so that's kind of what happened in this case. We're literally rehabbing one deal, and then we're driving for dollars, which is something that we already know to do in order to find a deal. We're doing those two together. Now, guess what? An opportunity presents itself. Now, your preparation, you already know how to find what a good deal looks like, meets opportunity. You see the deal, and now you're able to capitalize on it. And now this one is one of our best because we have eliminated the middlemen, which are the wholesalers that we usually use, and we have the access to private money, something that we've already been preparing for it and for this type of moment to come up to us. So now everything that we've done prior to this is pretty much setting us up for this moment. So that's really what helped us out to be able to to capitalize on this opportunity when it presented itself. And like you said, it's not being lucky. It's laboring on the correct knowledge, preparation meeting opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'll kind of talk to him real quick and then we'll hop right into it. But yeah, today's guest is Jeremy Johnson, man. Jeremy Johnson, he's this dude is his mindset and his mentality is on another level. That's what I appreciate about him the most. I heard him on a podcast a few months ago and I was like, man, I gotta get this dude on this show. And so, I'm glad I was able to make that happen for y'all because I know this episode here is this is a mindset altering episode. It's gonna change. It should change your perspective on a lot of things, in terms of entrepreneurship and business and economics and all of those things, right? Because the perspective that he's bringing is very unique in terms of how he looks at a lot of the things that we talk about. He's bringing a perspective that's very unique, and that's what we definitely like to do on the show is bring a new perspective for even the same things we talk about all the time is just a new perspective, right? Because essentially, how many times have we brought on a guest that has paid off 6 figures of debt and has 6 figures net worth? It's just a new perspective. So, but yeah, with this episode, y'all definitely listen to the whole thing and get everything from this. You might have to listen to this joint twice. Let's get everything from this. So, but yeah, one of you have something to say about it?
Yeah, for one, I want to make sure I point out that if anybody can't listen to this in its entirety, break it up into sections. If this is an hour and a half, I'm not too sure how long it's going to be. Break it up into 3 30-minute sections. But this is invaluable information, bro. Like, this dude talks about getting out your comfort zone and just doing things that you normally wouldn't to get to places that normal people can't get to. And, like, bro, it's so invaluable. Like, this is free game, bro. Like, at the end of the day, there should be no reason that somebody is not trying to listen to this whole thing in its entirety, because it's just, I mean, the information here is invaluable and should have a price tag on it. So the fact that it's free, please take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, come on. If you can't sit down and listen to 90 minutes of someone telling you what this is, hey, you need to do this, we can't even help you then. So, but yeah, let's get right into it.
Yep.
Hey, Jeremy, how you doing today?
I'm well, man. I'm well. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, this is I think going to be a really good episode. I'm super excited to get you on the show. Like I said, we were talking before we kind of started recording, and I heard you on a podcast. Shout out to Todd Capital, a couple months ago, and I was like, man, we got to get this dude on the show because his mindset and his brain and his just the level of thinking that you kind of get to, it's nothing you talk about is like surface level. It's like you dig into the layers of everything, and that's what I really loved whenever I was listening to what you were saying. So I'm super excited for this one. Yeah,
I like it.
So real quick, right before we get into the good stuff, can you kind of give us your upbringing with money, how you got into real estate investing and entrepreneurship and all of that, so people can see why you are credible to kind of talk about the things you're going to talk about.
Gotcha. All right. So quick, I guess the synopsis of my entire life, right? A succinct version. I was raised in Philly, right? First 10 years of my life, I lived in Philly. And my cousin was a street pharmacist, right? As you know, there's very few people in Philly where your family isn't affected either by drugs or, by criminal behavior of some sort. And now we were raised middle class. My mom worked 2 jobs to make sure that we were raised middle class. But because she was working 2 jobs, we often spent time with my grandmother, and she did not live in the middle class neighborhoods. And there was, up until we moved out of Philly, there was so much stuff that, during my formative years that I just considered normal. I only had one friend who actually lived with his biological mom and dad, and they were married. There was only one friend. Everyone else had a, single parent like our situation, or it was like a stepdad or a mom boyfriend or something type of upbringing. So there's a lot of that or whatever. And then, but really what shaped me was my cousin, right? My cousin had cars, women, we grow up in, if you have siblings and you got, it's your day on dishes or it's your siblings' day on dishes, he would have women come over to do his day on dishes. This is not what I heard, this is what I saw. Women would come over to come and take his laundry and go and get it washed and that type of thing. So there was no one more successful in our family than my cousin, right? And the only way that you would know, because he wasn't the stereotypical, golds in the mouth, have, kind of the stereotype of what you would see as a drug dealer. In fact, the best comparison I can give you, he was like Mekhi Phifer's role on Paid in Full. Clean cut, dark skinned guy, nice smile, always wore, nice clothes. There are things that from his life that I still implement as an adult today. He always said, "Hey, you wear white sneakers, you keep them clean, they make you look clean." Those are things that I take even until adulthood, right? He was always clean cut. But the only way that you could tell that, where he was in life wasn't exactly gotten from legal means is you have to compare what he had, cars, motorcycles, women, name brand clothes and everything, to his age. He was 19 when he was killed. Right. And so I remember asking my uncle, I was like, "Hey, did you ever try to talk him out of it? Did you ever try to talk him out of it?" And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "How do you tell a person with a winning hand that they're really losing?"
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of what drives me now, so I don't shame drug culture. It's not that I support it or promote it, but I understand it. I understand that when the best option or the best the person with the best lifestyle that you see is not doing the whole go to school, get a job, type of thing. And to be honest with you, I really feel like most drug dealers are business people who are misguided. They just have an illegal product or service, but it's not that their mindset there's nothing wrong with their mindset. In fact, I would even argue that they're more woke than most people who follow the go to school, get a good job avenue, because those people generally aren't even doing the things that they want to do with their lives, right? So that's what shapes a lot of my upbringing, understanding that in order to lead people to a life that's worth living, you have to be in a position where someone is going to want to emulate you. For him, obviously, that was our example growing up, right? Even after he got killed, I still wanted to do that. And it took my mom moving us out of Philly for me to not want to do it anymore, right? But then I realized, hey, someone has to do it legally and create businesses and things that are worth pursuing, so that the people behind them say, hey, I want to do what you're doing.
There's so much good stuff in there already, because you pretty much, when you first started out, you're saying that the people that you see around you are all in a similar situation. So that's huge for somebody growing up, because I know people always say it takes a village to raise a child. If your entire village is doing the same thing as you're being raised to think the way that they think, and now you're going to just end up in the same with their same mentality. So whatever the adults are doing in that community, you're going to be doing the same thing. And the only vision of success you had was your cousin, who was basically, he had a business mindset, but like you said, he was doing it illegally, like he had illegal products. So now that's leading him to a short road, basically a road that's like with a dead end on it. And so you mentioned that your mom moved you out of Philly. So I'm guessing that must have provided you with some new perspective in life.
That's
and being
exactly
able to see. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Exactly
So it provides new perspective.
It's hard to tell someone to do something different if you're not showing them something different. Mm-hmm. Up until you can see it, it's all theory. It's no more real than what you read in the book. I mean, so it took my mom moving us out, and actually, so we got to see 2-parent homes. We got to see, a different way, because up until then, that was completely normal for us.
Exactly.
And that's so crazy too, because I think about that too. And I was like, while you were saying that, I was trying to like relate that back to like my life too. And I was thinking of it, and we're kind of talking before. I wasn't necessarily born in this country, right? I was born in Kenya, and that is, people know about that place. It's like a lot of the areas very poor, very impoverished, very it's the slums in a lot of the area, right? But my parents kind of knew the life that I would be living there would be like nothing compared to what they could give me if we came over here. And that's kind of like very similar to what I'm getting like from what your mom had seen for you. She was like, man, this isn't going to be it. And that mindset and that transition is. So then after that happened and she moved you out, how did you like kind of, transition into, because I know whenever I was reading about you or looking into your story, you got into the military and like those kind of things. How did you transition out of that?
So when I was 19 or 20, I was working at this mental hospital. I was seriously making I don't think I was making $8.50 an hour, right? And so a situation happened there. They didn't want us to work overtime, but then my supervisor called me and said, "Hey, we're so short-staffed. We need you to work overtime. I'll cover for you," right? And this is a similar story that I've heard from other people when you've had that aha moment. Hey, this whole job thing is a farce. So he calls me in. I work the overtime, and then the supervisor above her says, "Hey, I know that your immediate supervisor said to come in, but the overall message, which no one's allowed to work overtime. So they were planning to fire me, right? But they had to get state approval because it was a state facility, right? They can't just fire you overnight. And I knew what was happening, so I just resigned. And in that time, so now I'm not working, and then within a week of that happening, my car goes down, so I'm not working and I'm not driving. And this is before the days of job applications being online. So now I have no way to get back and forth to look for jobs, right? I have no way I had to withdraw from college because I had no way to get back and forth to school, right? And I'm just stuck in my apartment. This is, oh man, what is this? This might be 2006, 2007 era, somewhere around there. And so what ends up happening is I have literally nothing to do, right? Nothing to do. So I read this book that people have been told me about. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon, right? And then the next book that I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, if you know about Rich Dad Poor Dad, the only book that he mentions in Rich Dad Poor Dad, the only other book that he mentions is The Richest Man in Babylon. And so it just so happened. So I read those two books, and like it was so from the job letting me go and understanding that job security is a farce, it only exists in your mind, right? Position security is a thing, meaning that they were always going to need healthcare workers at this hospital. They weren't going to need Jeremy Johnson to be the healthcare worker. So there's position security, but there's not job security. Your job is a myth. It only exists in your mind, right? So then that thing had been blown up. I realized that that's not true. And then I read these two books in succession, which tell me, hey, the way that other people are playing this game is completely different from how I've been groomed to play it, right? So then at 20 years old, I secured my first business license. But I understood enough to know how that I needed to be in business, but I didn't understand how to build a business. So then I go through years of just struggling, sleeping on my friends' couches. So when I talk to people about me sleeping on couches, it's because I was working at this. I eventually got another job working in this corporate setting, and I was making decent money, but I hated what I was doing because by that point I had already read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I already read Richest Man in Babylon, and so I was vividly aware that this is a dead end road, right? I hated being there so much so. I would tell my supervisor, I understood enough about business to know this. Hey, this is a business, and I don't expect you to hook me up, or you need to do your job, but I need a peace of mind. So I would tell her, like my shift was from like 3 to 11, and I would tell her, listen, I'm leaving at 8. If you need to write me up, I'll go ahead and sign it right now. I hated the job that much, and I would just tell her, listen, I hated it. I ended up walking away from that job and straight into abject poverty because it was like I can't do this. I quit. But I didn't. So I had a business that wasn't cash flowing because I didn't know how to actually build a business. I just had one on paper, right? And then I walked away from a day job because I knew that wasn't the way, but I didn't know how to create income any other way. So then that's when I entered years of, I'm talking about years, plural, of sleeping on friends' couches. At one of my lowest points, I was living in this place. I didn't have enough money to get the gas turned on, and it was a gas water heater, so I didn't have hot water. I would have to microwave bowls of water to wash up in the morning. I'm walking back and forth to work, right? Because my car is down again, right? So when people tell me about how they can't get started and such, it's mindset. And I know people are like, no, but you don't understand my situation. Unless you are mentally or physically incapacitated, I can trade hands with anyone and get back to where I am right now because I have the mindset and I have the willingness to sacrifice. Most people they don't understand that you're going to sacrifice. You're either going to sacrifice because you're not wealthy or you're going to sacrifice to become wealthy. Yeah. You don't get to pick if you're going to sacrifice. You're going to sacrifice. I just choose to sacrifice toward building wealth.
That's amazing. Because you know what? The biggest thing I got from that too is that when you decided to quit your job, you already had the mindset of, or you were working toward that mindset of a wealthy person. Not necessarily that your pockets might have been wealthy, because you say your business wasn't cash flowing, but like you said, you could lose everything and you can get right back there, within X amount of time, right? Just because you have the knowledge now, you have the experiences, and you have, the know-how to actually do it. And that's what actually wealth actually is. It's the literacy and the competence to be able to, come from any situation and get back to this, whatever position of X many dollars or whatever wealth looks like to you. That's what wealth is. And that's kind of that's the vibe I'm getting from whenever you're telling that story. Because, for you had so much confidence in yourself, at the age of 20, you were like, I don't need this, right? I can do this. And I know that this is a scam. I know that, job security is not real and that all of this is just, it's something in the head. So, I commend you for that. Cause that definitely, that took some balls to to do that.
I mean, seriously, I wish I could tell you that I knew what I was doing at the time. I knew enough about what I didn't want more than I knew how to construct what I did want. I just knew that this wasn't it. And so I was willing to try almost anything that led me away from that. So it wasn't that I was full steam ahead toward wealth. I was just trying to run away from what I considered the new poverty, which is, you know what I mean, working to build someone else's business. You would never be able to leave it behind. You know what I mean? To me, that I was just trying to escape more than I was trying to pursue. And at this point now, because I understand how to build businesses and such and how to invest in to make money, make more money, I can run toward. But at some point, you got to at least be willing to escape where you are. And some people, they're just not willing to escape where they are. They feel like they have to have it all figured out before they're willing to escape. And that's how you die in poverty.
Yeah, man.
Most people aren't willing to take that first step because they're scared to fail, and that's one thing that Robert Kiyosaki talks about all the time in Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then all of his other books. He's talking about how people's fear of failing gets them to never get started, and they stay in that rat race all of their life, and are just never willing to take another step towards something that may be better for them. And what I'm hearing from your story is that by hitting rock bottom, you almost you were just more like motivated to say, okay, I can't go down anymore from here. Like I'm going up. I'm going up from here on out. Like no matter where I am, but I don't want to come up and go to a dead end cycle. And that would have been you going back and saying, oh, can I get my job back, that 3 to 11 job you had? And you're like, okay, I don't need to do that. Like I'm gonna figure out my way, whatever it may take, because I know the formula from reading these books. Now I just need to be able to implement that into my life and just pretty much, I guess, trial and error until something finally works for you. And so I'm guessing, well, we've seen that from you now that you're doing real estate. Is that like what you started going into after the first businesses didn't really pan out the way you wanted to?
No, you know what? For people who have a pre-existing interest in real estate, they just haven't taken action. You have a head start on me. For me, I was in uniform. So at my lowest point, like I said, I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm sleeping on couches. I'm microwaving bowls of water. My mom has this conversation with me. She says, son, I know you want to be in business, but you at least have to be in a position where you can take care of yourself. And so for the longest, I wasn't willing to join the military. And she reminded me of the story. When we moved from Philly, my mom actually had enough money and was in position to actually get a new construction home built when we moved to Georgia. That was the goal, right? But then when she came down here, she got into this car accident, and then so she has medical bills. The house in Philly didn't quite sell as soon as she wanted to, so she's paying the mortgage for the house we lived in Philly, rent for the house that we were living in Georgia. Medical bills, still have to provide for 3 boys. So she quickly ran through the money that she was going to use to get this new construction house built. She said, son, remember when I wanted to come down and I wanted to get this new construction house built? I said, yes. She said, it took me 10 years because of that setback. It was a detour, but I finally got there. Sometimes you have to take the detour. And so what she was saying is, hey, try this military thing out. Give it like 2 or 3 years, whatever the minimum amount is, that you can serve. Reposition yourself and then get back to business. And that's what I did. It took me closer to 8 years because in the interim, I decided to get married. Wasn't one of my most financially savvy just choices, right? But so the transition to the marriage actually is interesting because as I prepared to get divorced in the Army, you have to be of a certain rank to live off post to not have to be stuck in the barracks. Like they force you to, if you don't have dependents, either a child or a spouse, right? Then you have to live in the barracks. And so I had this conversation with, and I don't think I've ever shared this with any podcast, but this is how this worked, right? I had this conversation with the supervisor. He said, listen, when your divorce finalized, they're going to move you back into the barracks. And as a person who lived in the barracks for only 6 months before I got married, and I didn't have to live, you get used to not having to live in the barracks. No one's trying to go back to the barracks, right? So I had to buy a house. It didn't matter where it was. I just needed to buy a house so that I could say, hey, I have a financial obligation, and moving me back into the barracks and taking away my housing allowance will put me into financial hardship, right? So I bought a house, but that's why I bought my house. That's really why I bought my first house. And it just so happened that in my travels in the military, I've been deployed and that type of thing. At this juncture, they moved me back to the city I graduated high school from. I was never planning on going back to Augusta, Georgia. I graduated with all plans to leave and never come back. I get these orders from West Texas. I'm currently in West Texas at the point, and they're like, hey, you're going back to Augusta, and I'm going through this divorce. So I'm like, My mom was in Augusta. I was like, hey, mom, I need you to go look for a house. If you like it, I love it. I'll sign for it. I just don't need to be back in the barracks, right? So fast forward, I get the house, right? The divorce finalizes like 3 months after that I bought my house. So it was perfect timing for me, right? But in the interim, I got this 4 bedroom house, 4 bedroom, 2 bath house, and I'm going through this divorce at the point, and I run into this guy, these 2 black men talking about real estate. I'm in uniform, they're in uniform, so I know nothing about them but their rank and last name, nothing else, right? They know nothing about me. And typically, when you hear people talking and it's something interesting, you kind of ear hustle, you kind of lean in. But what they were talking about was so intriguing, I interjected. I said, "Hey, gentlemen, I know you don't know me, I don't know you, but it just sounds like you're talking about something that's real heavy, some real wisdom. Do you mind if I listen in?" I don't care. They kept talking like I was fine. Well, it just so happened that they were talking about real estate investing. So I had no pre-existing interest in real estate investing. It was just that happenstance conversation. I'm seeing these 2 black men, and it really wasn't what they were talking about. It was how they were talking about it that I knew. I just need to listen in, and that was a turning point in my life. It was a happenstance chance with my mentor, Mike the mentor.
Oh wow. And so that's so crazy because I see that. I mean, your mentality and like the way you kind of are, your attitude is very inquisitive. And like I was kind of mentioning that earlier just before we were talking. And I mean, it seems like it started a long time ago because, even most people would never do that. Most people would be, oh my gosh, what are they going to think of me if I go and try to talk to them and get in a conversation? They're going to think I'm crazy or whatever. But it's like, no, I mean, you heard something that was like, yo, they spin some real game. That's something that could actually like benefit me. And you said, okay. And that's really, I think that's like the part that's like that whole like mentality and that mindset is like a part that a lot of people would never get because it's always that fear of like thinking of what people think about you. And, for you to actually take that step, it's like, that moment literally changed your life.
Okay, and I want to talk a little bit more about the conversation that you had with them because I know that we've listened to like we've done a little bit of homework on you in general. So you had a 4 bedroom house, right? And you just got divorced, so that means you had living in it all by yourself.
Exactly.
And isn't it right that you brought it up to them? And what was their conversation like? With
It
you?
was the way I talked to this guy because I didn't know him at the time, just knew he was an officer. These were 2 officers. I was enlisted, like lower enlisted. So a lot of times when it comes to officers enlisted in the military, it just depends on people's mindsets. They'll be like, "Oh man, I can't talk to them. They're an officer." I'm like, "Listen, that's a person, and they look like me, and I need to have this conversation with them, right?" But so I talked to him, and he just listened. I was like, "Yeah, man, I heard you talking about real estate." So he was talking to the other officers, 2 black men. They were both officers talking to each other, and so I ran into him about 3 or 4 minutes later in the hallway by myself. I was like, "Yeah, I heard you talking about real estate, da da da. Going through this divorce. I got this 4 bedroom house. You know what I mean? No wife, no kids, just me, da da da. Going through this divorce." And he said, "Are you renting out your rooms?" I'm like, "No, I ain't renting out my rooms." Because this is why I tell people, listen, if you're married, stay married. Fight for your marriage, that type of thing, right? But there are 2 sides of a divorce, right? The first side is like hey, we can work it out. Let's talk about it. Let's fix it. Let's go to therapy. The second part is acceptance. And that's when you're like, man, I'm about to be on the market. Let me go in and freshen up these clothes. Let me go in and get the gym. You know what I mean? Let me go in and get right. And so I was in phase 2. I'm trying to get right. I got this nice house. You know what I mean? Me by myself. And so I'm trying to get right. I want my privacy. I want my comfort, right? And comfort will confine you. And so he says, "Are you renting out your rooms?" I was like, "Nah, I'm trying to be comfortable." And all he says in response, he says, "You're leaving money on the table, rent out your rooms." And I said, yes. And I tell people that's the yes that changed my life. Because had I said no, he would have just been like, "Oh, okay, that's what's up, da 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 da." We would have chopped it up, dapped it up, and walked away. And I'd have been still in boots, no different, in the same position I was. But it's our comfort. It's our comfort, our version of what we want to be, "Oh, I can't do that." And people tell me even now, to this day, I still rent out the rooms in that same house, right? People say, "Oh man, I couldn't live with strangers. I couldn't rent out the rooms in my house." And you also can't travel the world the way I do. You also have to go to a job. Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can't do. You're not willing to give up your comfort. There's a lot of things you can't do.
We hear that so many times, like all the time, because that's one of the biggest reasons people don't ever do anything. It's because that your comfort will kill you. Comfort is the enemy of progress. And especially when it comes to economic success, like people don't understand the idea of delayed gratification. Like you put things aside, like you take the short-term L for the long-term W. And the way the way I kind of see that is like, because one thing we always talk about, especially we're big on house hacking, right? and like the best way to get started with real estate. And one thing we always said, when we were saying this since episode 5, that was the first episode we did house hacking. We say comfortability versus profitability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the more comfortable you are, the less profitable it will be. But like literally, because you can think of it in terms of like house hacking, right? House hacking, there's luxury house hacking, right? You can get a house built and you can get an apartment built in the back of or whatever, whatever. You live alone in your place, you still have someone coming in. It might not cover the entire mortgage, but you got income coming in, right? And then you have the duplex. Okay, now you got somebody that's on the wall next to you. It's not quite as, comfortable, but you still got your own space, and you still get the income. You get more income coming in. It might cover your whole mortgage. And then you got, renting by the rooms. So now it's like, oh, you living with people now. That's one of the most profitable, actually scenarios, even though it's the least comfortable, because now you're sharing stuff, doing all these things. And then even if you could take it a step further now, you don't even have a bedroom and you sleep in the couch, right? Because there's people that do that. They rent out all the rooms and they just, they own the house and they sleep on the couch, right? And so now you're going to be cash flowing, though, I promise. You probably don't even have to work a job now if you're doing that. Because the cash flow you be getting from renting out all your rooms, it's insane. And so that's like, people got to really understand that concept, because once you get rid of that instant gratification mentality, it's going to change your financial future.
Absolutely right. And one of the questions that I'm asked, they're like, because they're like, so what happens when if you're dating a woman and she sees that you're renting out rooms? Get with it or get lost. Let me be honest with you. You know what I mean? Because my financial future and me positioning my future children to not have to work is more important than trying to impress a woman. And if a woman can't see that vision, you weren't, you're not the woman for me. So
that's big, right there.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest about it. We're not even going in the same direction. Yeah. So, like you said, but you have to get rid of your comfort. You have to give that up. There's no comfort. Discomfort is the currency of progress. Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to pay, then you can't.
Yeah, but I like what you said earlier, because you were saying that the people who can't give this comfort up are the people who also can't live their life the way that you are living, because they're saying, I can't give up this. Well, you can't give up that. You can't achieve all the other things that you want to achieve in life. And you mentioned that this one yes that you said just by saying I'm running out my rooms and get uncomfortable led you to just being able to gain all success, because I always say success lies on the other side of your comfort zone. And so once you get outside your comfort zone, that's where you can start building towards more success for your life. So you get like a little bit more of a testament like to what this has done for you as far as your journey ever since renting out those first rooms.
Yeah. So the way Mike told it to me, he said, "Listen, well, another part of the story. So after that meeting, two days later, and so it was 2 days later when I found out his actual first name. He just texted me. He said, "Hey, meet me at this gas station off post." Cool. Met him there, and I was driving this 2004, this beat up 2004 Saturn, right? And he said, "Is that paid off?" I said, yes. He said, good. That means you have more money to invest. I didn't know what he meant at the time. What he was talking about was debt to income ratio.
Yeah.
Right. And so he drove me around in his truck and he was just pointing out, houses like, hey, I own that house, drive a little bit more. I own that house, drive a little bit more. I own this house. Now at this point, my eyes are getting big because listen, the military is not paying like that. I can Google your pay. Right? You're not paying. None of us are getting paid like that. Right. So I asked him, I said, so what do you do? He said, I rent out rooms, save that money, start buying houses, save that money, start buying buildings. So he now owns buildings. Now, the thing is, save that money to invest. We are taught to just budget and save. That's an incomplete plan, right? It's budget, save, invest. Investing is the only part of your financial activity that actually moves you ahead of the starting line, right? Budgeting just means that, hey, I'm not going to owe people. Saving is just potential, but it's actually the investing that allows you to create income without having to trade your time for it. And we're missing that part. It's mathematically impossible to save your way to financial freedom. Mathematically impossible. So the whole budget and saving and good credit scores that you're not using to access money for assets, but you'll use it to access liabilities. People will celebrate buying a new car. Congratulations on 60 months of payments. You see what I'm saying? How did that move you forward? That actually moved you back, right? We don't understand how money works. And if you don't understand how money works, it's literally everything in your life, like most of your daily decisions is based on, to include what time you wake up in the morning. It's determined by how much money you have.
Ooh.
Let's be honest, right? If you didn't need a day job, what time would you wake up? What time the day that you wake the time that you wake up, the clothes that you wear. Most people go to a restaurant and they order from right to left. Price first and then what they want. Price first, and then what they want. Right? Are we
100.
being honest? Right? So that's the thing. Like, you've got to understand how money works if you're going to live a life of freedom. And that's not just freedom away from a job. That's just the first step. Right? Financial freedom is, I don't need a job. Generational wealth is, my children, my posterity don't need jobs. So financial freedom, that's just the first step. But then what are you going to do now that you're away? Because it's one thing to not have escaped financial freedom. Then we already know your posterity. Your lineage is going to be stuck to a day job because you didn't make that. You never escaped. But how can you explain escaping and still not setting up your posterity or sending them back into the field that you had to escape from? Now that you reached it, what are you doing to ensure that everyone after you doesn't have to go through that same thing, right? They don't have to auction off their time to the highest bidder.
Yeah, and that's the there. Oh my God, that mindset is just that's the stuff I was talking about is another level. And it's like surface layers, because the thing about that is, especially even among like the personal finance, the money community, it's like a lot of people are, big on that whole Dave Ramsey strategy of pay off your debt and then you're happy. But it's like, yo, there's more to it than that. You pay off the debt, then you and then
I'm
you
not trying to be debt free. Only debt I'm trying to pay off is personal debt. Debt that doesn't make money. But no one who understands money is trying to be debt free. No one who understands money is trying to be debt free. We're trying to access more debt. The bank itself uses debt to issue out money. Like, why would you try? You know what I mean? It's counterintuitive to anyone who understands money. But like you said, Dave Ramsey is very popular amongst the broke people.
No, 100. And you know what too? Because Robert Kiyosaki, he always talks about because he criticizes that a lot in terms of like, they say get out of debt when rich people are trying to get into debt. Like, I want more debt. I want good debt. Obviously, I need more leverage. And rich people even call it something different. It's not even called debt. It's called leverage. So
now, and it's interesting. This is not to throw shots at Dave Ramsey, but I mean, Dave Ramsey himself made his fortune in real estate, and then you're going to tell other people not to. But that's a whole different animal. Yeah. For those who like Dave Ramsey, I can predict your financial future.
Man, see, I knew there was a reason. I knew there was a reason I could relate to this dude. I was like, yo, because that's the same thing that we be saying too in terms of when we talk about Dave Ramsey.
I'm just so people understand like who you are, because I think we just about to dive into mindset from here on out, because you spitting gems already. So just give us a brief overview, like what your portfolio looks like today as far as in real estate, and then we'll just start going straight into like how you think and how you operate on a daily basis.
Gotcha. So as far as portfolio, I have two rentals that actually belong to me. A third that I own or finance so that I can get another one of us at the table, young guy, 21 years old. And then I have a duplex that I haven't renovated, so it's not cash flowing. But when I bought the property, it's a duplex and a warehouse. And so we use the warehouse for our building materials because my investment firm itself acquires, renovates, and property manages assets for other investors. So we make the whole investing process hands off for other investors. So I'll buy, a rental, but most of my time and most of my team's resources is focused on building investing portfolios for other investors.
Cool. So, okay, yeah, I definitely want to hop into like some of the mindset stuff that I seen like all throughout your social media and all that stuff, because it was like, yo, this dude's just dropping gems every day, and it's just acquired from years of experience. Like you said earlier, you go out, you gather the information, and then you bring it back to the community. So shout out to you for that. But one thing I wanted to talk, first thing I wanted to talk about was one thing you had said was talking about chasing the bag. This was recently, and you said, I just quoted, you said, if you're chasing the bag, you're running the wrong way. Money is designed to chase you. Buying assets is how you build a track team. So can you kind of talk about that mentality and like what?
Absolutely. I mean, because like I said, I mentioned earlier that I like to travel, and my favorite place on planet Earth is Haiti. For several reasons. First off, because that's where the tipping point for colonialism and ending slavery started. Right? They were the first people as a group who decided, hey, we'll take a grave before we take these chains. Right? And up until Haiti decided to not live on their knees, it was thought that it was impossible to overthrow your slave masters as a collective, as a country, not just in the independent riots, right? But as a whole entire country, we will die before we allow you to enslave us, right? So that's one of the things, and because you got to have that type of mindset. At least I would encourage that type of mindset if you're going to live life fearlessly, right? Because there's comfort that's going to keep you back, but also your own fears that's going to keep you constrained. But beyond that, on Haiti, the thing about Haiti is though, is that no matter where you live, Haiti is not all impoverished as the media portrays. There are places where it's nice, places where it's not so nice. But one of the things that they have challenges with is their water, their plumbing infrastructure. So there are a lot of places that they have a bathroom, like it's a house, a real life house, like you live in and I live in. But the plumbing, where the water pressure might not be suffice to take a shower. So what ends up happening is that, every so often, down any type of parcel of land, you're going to be a lot of wells so that the families can draw water. And that's what we're taught when it comes to making money. We're taught that you start off, if you don't have any college degrees, and you got to go to the well with your cup and you got to get water back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But if you get a college degree, you graduate, you get a bucket, and then you can go back to the well, back and forth. You can make less trips because now you have a bucket. You don't have a cup like everybody else. I got a bucket. Meanwhile, other people understand that the best way to draw water is to buy a pump. Own the well and buy pumps and let the water come to you. So when it comes to understanding money, the most important thing is not how much you have, or what we tell is how much you have or how much you save. No, it's the direction of travel. Do you have to go to it, or does it come to you? And assets is the only way that you can buy something that changes the direction of travel. You're not going to a job. You're not selling your time or abilities. You've bought something where the money comes to you instead of you going to it. Say for us, when it comes to real estate investing, obviously that would be a rental. Between the 1st and the 5th, my tenants go to a day job, so I don't have to, because everyone is in the same position. I don't have to know your job title, how much money you get paid, or any of that to know that your rent or mortgage is the most single expensive item on your monthly budget. Yeah. So most money from most people's monthly budget goes toward real estate. I simply learned how to be on the receiving end of the table.
Oh my gosh. And I think the best thing you said too was talking about your tenants go to work so you don't have to. Because the thing about that is, you get to a point, and everybody, I don't know, most people never realize it, but you kind of, at some point, if you do ever realize it, like you realize how working is just a scam. Working for somebody else is a scam, and how like the idea is just honestly stupid. It doesn't make any sense to work for anybody else, and it's especially how long people do it. But literally, once you see how other people are actually doing it, and that's the thing. Like now in this information age that we're in, literally you see other people doing it like the way you described, in terms of other people, they have the pump now. They're not going back and forth with the bucket. That's just like a whole nother mindset shift. And especially when you talk about chasing the bag too, because the way I see it is like now, once you own rental properties and assets, like, yo, I don't have to go chase the bag. My tenants will go chase the bag, and then it's going to come to me.
Bring it to me.
Yeah, with anything like that, right? Like I was talking about earlier, with the semi trucks, right? My truck driver, he's going to go chase the bag, and he's going to bring it back to me. So that's kind of the mindset with it. Anything that you have, any asset that brings you money, online products, they're going to go chase the bag and bring it back to you. And that's that's just a whole nother mentality. But I think that's the right way to look at that.
I believe in it so much I don't have employees. I don't have any employees. I have other business owners who work with me, not for me, right? So even down to the cleaning lady. The lady that we use to clean our rental properties whenever we just finish a renovation or resetting a property, one tenant moves out, another tenant moves in. She owns our own business, right? So I work with other business owners. I believe in it so much that I don't even want you under me. I want you at the table with me, right? Because one of the common arguments is, well, if everyone's a business owner, well then how, who's going to be the employee? Who says that we need the employee? Everyone can work as a business owner. There's no law that says you can't work with other business owners. And so that's what my firm does. We don't have any employees. We have people who are business owners who work with us. Wow. Now, if they have employees, that's on them. But as far as me, I don't want employees. I want you to be a business owner. Love what you do so much that you make a business out of it.
Yeah. and that's crazy, because I remember when I listened to you on the podcast, you had even mentioned that the only way your tenants could get out of lease is if they show that they're going to buy a property.
Yeah.
And
You
that
show me
is
some
like,
closing documents, I'll let you out of the lease without any penalty. And no, I've never had a tenant do it. But that's the only way that you can. I mean, I encourage home ownership, even though it would be detrimental to my rental income to promote it. Because here's the crazy part: talking about mindset, I know that I can teach business ownership and home ownership without losing any money from my bottom line, because there are going to be so many people that are confined by their own comfort and fear that they're never going to take action.
yeah.
So I get the best of both worlds. I get to promote and help others who are willing to take action while still making money off of those who refuse to.
That's very true as well. Because I'm thinking back to when you were giving your story about where you grew up. Like what you were surrounded by was people that were going to just land you in a certain area. So pretty much like everybody had the same mentality back where you were growing up. And then you saw like nobody that was leading you to something better. Like you saw dead ends where you were leading. Now you are being the influence of change. Where today, where you're saying, "Hey, I'm going to encourage this. But I'm going to enforce my mentality of ownership by like." Putting little incentives like in my lease. Hey, if you bring me some closing documents, hey, go ahead. You're free to go. You're pretty much you're promoting your vision for change. You're promoting your vision for ownership and saying that this is the new wave. This is the way to go. And that's just a great big testament to you, because now you're changing the narrative all on your own just by being willing to promote that, just promoting ownership and just saying that this is the new way to go. But one thing you talked about is like, well, you always like try to put a perspective on people and try to limit their excuses. So one thing I saw you say was my job. Somebody always says my job should pay me more, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier, saying that what the time you wake up determines like the amount you get paid. I believe you said,
Yep.
And you pretty much said how much do you make when you're off the clock. And people had to really think about that, because 9 to 5, they're working a certain amount. I think you actually had another comment or another post that talked about like this girl who had made like $9 or something, and talking about we should get tipped more. Well, yes, you worked for that certain amount of time, you got paid a certain amount, but like you have the rest of your day. So say you work 9 to 5, that's 8 hours, and then what are you doing with the other 16 hours? So
That's exactly it. Yeah, no one, absolutely no one. And I hear me clearly. No one has a money problem. No one has a money problem. They have a time problem. Too much of their time. If they were to write down we can kind of, just so your listeners can hear it, right? Let's say you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? So from 12 midnight, which is when the new day begins, to 6 in the morning, that's 6 hours dedicated to sleep, right? And let's say you wake up at 6, you walk the dog, you feed the kids, you get them ready for school, you take yourself to work. You don't physically get back into your house until, let's say, 6 p.m. So the first 6 hours from midnight to 6 a.m. was spent sleeping. From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's 12 hours was spent either preparing for, engaging in, or returning from work, right? And let's say you lay down at night at 10 p.m., right? From 10 to 12 midnight again is another 2 hours of sleep. So between 12 midnight to 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. to 12 midnight, that's 8 hours of sleep, 12 hours of preparing for, going to, returning from work. So there's 4 hours between 6 p.m. when you physically get home to 10 p.m. What are you doing with that time, right? And what people will tell you is I gotta do, feed the kids, I gotta do X, Y, and Z. But if we look at your daily clock, right, it would be foolish of me to be a farmer and expect a harvest from something that I did not plant in the ground, right? Yeah. But if I look at your daily itinerary, and none of your daily itinerary is spent learning or doing a high income activity, well, then you don't have a money problem. You have a time problem. None of your time is spent putting yourself in a position where you're going to no longer need the job. So how dare you tell your job that they need to pay you more when you pay yourself nothing on the time that you do have? You pay yourself nothing. You don't have a money problem. You have a time problem.
Exactly. Like at the end of the day, it goes back to mindset, because it's about thinking differently. Like you're trying to play victim when in reality you are the problem. Like you need to change your mindset and change your approach.
No way to the top. No one's ever like, hey, listen, once I figured out the right people to blame, I woke up wealthy. It's never happened that way. So I mean, blaming makes you feel like you absolved yourself from responsibility. It doesn't change your financial position. You got to say, hey, listen, there's only 2 steps between where you are and where you want to be. What you're willing to learn, what you're willing to do. You're not engaging in those 2 activities. You know what I mean? You're spinning circles.
Yep. And the thing about blaming too is that but when people blame people, it makes them feel better about like why they haven't achieved what they're trying to achieve too. Especially like when it comes to like getting rich, right? Because a lot of people actually believe that it's their boss's job or their employer's job to make them rich. Like, no, that's not their job at all. Their job was to find a person that can do this task that they will compensate for doing this task. It doesn't even have to be you. It was just a person, like you said earlier.
Yep. Anybody will do. Literally,
Yeah.
any human body will do.
Yep. Because people always say that they want, you know, 6-figure salaries or whatever to be happy, right? But, you know, it's not. People think like, oh, I need to graduate, get a 6-figure job, then I'll be rich or whatever. But it's like, bro, you have to give yourself that raise. You can't be relying on, you know, your boss to give yourself that raise. And that's a whole nother mentality shift. And it doesn't even have to be nothing major. Like literally something as simple as like whatever, selling t-shirts or anything like that is enough to, you would give yourself a bigger raise than what your job will give you, right? Because I mean, the way I look at it is now, I mean, I don't even, like at my day job now, I don't even care about raises. Like they use that to kind of hold it above your head, like, you know, the carrot and the donkey kind of thing, just because they know, oh, he's going to work harder for a raise. But like, if you don't care about it, they have nothing to hold on you. Because like a couple months ago, they had a conversation with me at work because they know I'm kind of like, you know, business oriented and all those things. And he asked me, he said, well, so what is your plan? Like, because the way it works is, you know, the corporate ladder. And
Yeah.
I came in like 2 years ago, and like, you know, the next position is the here. And so he said, like, my project manager, he asked me, hey, what do you plan to be, you know, do you want to be a vice president in this company or whatever? Do you want that responsibility? And I looked at him, I said, honestly, no, I don't want that. Because the reason I said that is because I look at the guy that's in that position now, and I look at how much time he spends in that position and how much time he spends weekly, like 60, 70 hours working to fulfill the tasks of that job. And it's like, what am I doing that for? Am I doing that for myself or am I doing that for you? It's not for me. I don't care about it. The only reason I would be doing it is for the money. So if it's for the money, how can I just give myself that money? So for me, I go buy a rental property. That's my raise.
I think people blame their employers because employees themselves are in a one-sided relationship. You're in a relationship where you're expected to give 110%, and that's not the agreement that your employer made when they hired you. They didn't say that we're going to pay you 110% of what you're worth.
Yeah.
They didn't say that we're going to go above and beyond to look out for you and your children. They never agreed to that. You're in a one-sided relationship, right? And so in their minds, they're owed something because they feel like if I give, then there should be some form of reciprocity. But understand, you entered a one-sided relationship. Like it's not even implied that they're going to take care of you. They never say, hey, listen, if they're short-handed, like I explained when the mental hospital, they were short-handed, they needed some extra people to come in, right? If you're short-handed at home, you need a babysitter. Are they going to send someone to watch your children? No, it's a one-sided relationship. If they're short-handed, they want you to sacrifice your time. If you're short-handed and need some help, are they going to give you an advance on your check? No, they're going to tell you to figure it out. You're in a one-sided relationship as an employee, and the sooner people realize that, if it doesn't anger you enough to do something about it, then take it. Let's just be honest. Like stop complaining about it. Just take it. Like, listen, man, it's no different from a person getting cheated on that's not willing to leave the relationship.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yep. It's just simply like, yo, if you think you're worth more, then just go get it. That's really all it is.
That's the real proof of if you're really sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll do something about it. Otherwise, complaining is just like, you can either change or you can do something about it. You can accept it or you can do something about it. Complaining is simply, I don't want people to know that I'm just accepting it. So I'm gonna put up this vocal resistance. I'm not gonna do anything about it, of course. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I will tell you that I'm unhappy with what I'm accepting, what I'm willing to accept.
Yes.
I think it just plays a big factor with people just accepting something because it becomes their new normal. I know you talked about that a lot too. It's because
I'm very guarded with what I allow to be my normal.
Yeah, because you mentioned it earlier when you first came on, like you was already talking about like what becomes normal to somebody is just like this. It's just the way it is. Like you just accept that. And so for people going to work every day, they just like, well, I should just expect a 2% raise every year. I should expect to have to move up the corporate ladder and give more of my time for something I can't pass down to my children. This is just my normal. normal. This is what I've been taught, and this is what should be accepted into my reality. And then once you can get out of that, that's when you can.
You've got to guard your normal, because by definition, everything outside of your normal is abnormal.
Yeah.
Right. So if you say I want to be a business owner, but you still think that working for someone is normal, then by definition, owning a business is abnormal, and we do not go full-fledged with something that we consider to be abnormal. So mentally, you've got to understand. That's why I was so discontented when I was working at a day job, where I would tell my supervisor, I'm leaving at 8, and if you need to write me up, go ahead. Because at that point, I had already accepted that working for someone else was abnormal, and I was willing to do anything to bring my new normal into fruition. But I can't take credit for all of that. That was actually a concept that I heard put into words by Les Brown. He said, we can either live from our imagination or we can live from our experience. And if you're living from your experience, you only expect more of what you've already experienced.
Right.
Whereas if you live from your imagination, you can literally create, hey, I've never been, no one in my family owns a business. No one in my family is a real estate investor. No one in my family has done X, Y, and Z. But I'm going to be the first. I'm going to bring into reality with something that I can only imagine right now. And so I choose to live from my imagination, and I create what I'm willing to accept from my imagination. I don't keep going in circles expecting more of what I've already experienced.
The thing about that too is, like, when you have the imagination, because especially when you're young, like if anyone that's young is listening to this, you have an advantage because you haven't been corrupted to the extent as a lot of people that have been older, right? Like people, you work 20 years in a job and now you got to unlearn a lot of the things that you've learned to get out of that mindset, right? But whenever you kind of get into it at a younger age, or whatever, even let's say you graduate college, right? Because for us, we got into like the whole financial freedom thing literally right before getting into the workforce. So for us, our normal wasn't yet working a job and trading in your money. So what happened was January 2018, we start working, and it's like, wait, this is stupid. Why this doesn't feel right? Like it like intuitively everyone is doing it, but like when you start doing it yourself, it's like, bro, why would people do this? There's other ways to get money. Like, why would you trade all your time away, literally give your whole life away for 40 years, the best years of your life, in exchange for a paycheck every 2 weeks? Like, why would you do that whenever you can do it another way? And the only reason we could say that was because that wasn't our normal yet at that point. But I mean, obviously, thanks to books and stuff that we read, we were able to see the other way. But that's what I think a lot of people should understand that too.
Absolutely.
Big reason behind the reason that we're able to get out of that mindset, because you were saying when we can do it another way. Most people don't even know that there is another way. Like, this is the only thing that's been taught to us growing up. Unless you were born into wealth already, you wouldn't have known that otherwise back previous generations from this one. But now, since we're in the information age, everything is accessible. Now we can see that there are other ways, and now you can choose for yourself which way is the best way for me. Which way do I agree with? So now you have the freedom of choice, and that's really what we're trying to move into from now on.
Yeah. One of the things that you had mentioned that I think one of the best things I've ever heard was that that concept of economic domestication. Like when you talked about that, I was like, man, that was ridiculous. Can you kind of get into that and talk about what?
So when you take every animal instinctively understands how to hunt, how to find or forage for food. Every animal, doesn't matter what, and it could be, whether we're talking about cats, dogs, frogs, doesn't matter. They instinctively know how to do this. And the same thing is true when it comes to humans and our ability to provide for ourselves. We instinctively, no one's going to sit on a corner and just die of malnutrition, right? We instinctively understand how to provide for ourselves. But when you entrust that ability to provide for yourself to someone else, and you become reliant on them, then you step away from learning how to do that for yourself, or you don't see the need to, or worst case, you actually see it as risky to go provide for yourself. You see that as, oh, that's risky. It's way more safer to let someone else, spoon feed me. And so at that point, you're no longer in a position. You've been domesticated, no different from how a house kitten or a dog has been domesticated to live among humans, right? And to be treated as such, as a pet, right? Because if I provide for you, what are you going to do? No matter how I treat you, you're going to you're stuck with me because you don't know how to hunt or provide for yourself. And when we already understand, right, that most of your decisions to start with, what time you wake up in the morning, is based on how much money you have. If you have no control over your economic situation, you've allowed yourself to become domesticated. You can't fight. You have to accept however you're being treated by whoever's providing for you until you decide, hey, I'm going to be in a position where I can provide for myself. That's why I can be as outspoken as I am about black issues and things that are unacceptable in white corporate working spaces, right? Because you can't touch my paycheck. As long as there are going to be people who are willing to rent instead of buy homes, I'm always going to have rental income, right? As long as there are investors who need their money working for them so that they don't have to go and work for it, I'm always going to be able to build investment portfolios. You can't touch my bottom line. So I can say what I want, and I can teach my people what I want to teach them, right? And I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay my bills.
Hoo-hoo. And that's the definition of freedom. Like it's
Right.
even more so than the economic aspect. It's literally freedom of speech. It's freedom of, doing whatever you want. And that whole concept, those people that have been domesticated, they don't even, like you had said, whenever I heard you say it, like they don't bite the hand back that feeds them, right? Like
Mhm.
the lion that has been domesticated in the zoo isn't gonna bite the zookeeper anymore. Because now, they know, oh, they got this meal coming. I don't have to bite them. So
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. One thing that you said too, another tweet that you had was like you were talking about. You said when I left my day job, I knew my income would immediately drop, and it did. So why'd I still leave? Because I also know my income would exceed my day job if I had more time to invest, and it did. So the thing I got from that is like you knew how valuable your time is, right? And you
Mhm.
knew that your time is more valuable than what you were being paid for. Is that kind of the
Hundred
mentality?
percent. It's kind of going back to when we kind of did that clock, right? And we see how much time is being spent, right? A low income activity is something that doesn't pay you commensurate to the lifestyle that you want to live. So you can make six figures a year. In fact, most of the investors that I build portfolios for are already six-figure earners. But something happens after six figures when you realize no matter how much money you make, if you don't control your time, you're still no further ahead than where you want it to be, right? Doesn't matter if you become VP of a company because your children can't take over where you left off. They have to start in the mailroom or maybe in an account executive position or whatever. So there's not even any there's no continuity of that. They just start right back over, right? So when it comes to understanding the best use of your time, the best use of my time was freeing myself up from those because I was working 12-hour shifts when I was working in the military. So freeing myself from those 12-hour shifts so I can redirect it. I'm going to make way more money, because, I can put together a real estate deal as far as negotiating with a property owner and then explaining the deal to an investor within an hour or two. So imagine how much more money I'll make, just talking to people. Talk to this person. Hey, listen, this is what we can pay you for this property, given, what I mean, the condition and such. All right. Hey, property investor. Hey, we got this deal. It's going to cash flow 23% for you. You want that? Cool, cool, cool. Let's put it together. But I had a high income I had learned a high income skill that once I devoted more time to it, I knew it would produce more money. But that's the first step is learning a high income activity. If you don't know a high income activity, they can give you all 24 hours. You're still broke. You know, you know what I mean? So you've got to have a skill set that given more time will produce more money.
Yeah, because I was thinking, because whenever you said that, I kind of thought of like, because a lot of people think that rich people, have maids and stuff because they're rich, but it's actually opposite, right? Because they have maids, they're rich, right? Because the thing is now they don't spend time doing remedial tasks such as cleaning their house or cooking meals and things like that, right? So now all their time is spent doing, those high income activities. And so now you see your time literally worth $1,000 an hour, literally. Like any hour you're working is worth that much money.
I like to your point. I don't own lawn equipment. I don't own a lawnmower. I don't cut my own grass because for the amount of money that I can pay, my landscaper to come by, the money that I pay him, I can make a deal. I can make it. So my goal isn't to try to save money because again, it's mathematically impossible to save your way to financial freedom. Mathematically impossible. So my number one goal isn't to try to use my time to save money. It's to use my time to make enough money where I can pay other people to do the things that don't create money for me.
Mm.
Cutting my grass, I don't get paid to cut my grass.
Man,
That's big. I forgot who said this quote, man, but I feel like it was Henry Ford. I pay people to do everything that I don't want to do so I can have time to think. And thinking is what really produces all of the high income activities. So, like you said, putting a deal together for an hour is going to generate you X amount of dollars. It's way more than that. $50 an hour, $20 an hour, whatever you can get somebody in the form of a paycheck. And so that just goes to show, like, if you can have something that can solve a problem, or like if you can find that those high income activities, you'll be paid in dividends for that. Like you can be paid that over a multitude, like multiple times over. So I'm thinking now into like rental properties. I told Alex, like, I'm like, okay, the property that we both live in right now, like we have our own separate house tags ourselves. We maybe spent, I don't know, a week of just working on it, and now it pays us every month over and over and over and over. And if we keep it for the rest of our lives, it would pay us over and over and over. And that was a week's worth of work, and now it's a lifetime of payment. And those are the type of things that we need to be transferring our mindset to go out and achieve, because those are what's going to create generational wealth for us. That's something we can pass down. We can't pass down that $20 an hour to our lineage.
There's three things. In order to create generational wealth, you have to be able to live off of it, leverage it, and leave it behind. If it doesn't meet all three criteria, it doesn't create generational wealth. So with your day job, you can live off of it. You can leverage it in terms of using it to in order to justify getting a loan from a bank, but you can't leave it behind. Same thing with your credit score. You can leverage your credit score. You can't leave it behind. You have an 800. Your kids won't get 800 because you have one, right? So it has to meet all three criteria. Can I live off of it today? Can I leverage it if I need to? Can I leave it behind when I'm going?
That's why I hate the 401k.
Yeah, a 401k itself is not even it was never designed to be an investment vehicle. It was a high interest savings account. That's all it was designed to be. But if you use anything incorrectly, you will abuse it. Abnormal use. So they've abused the 401k. It doesn't produce the results that they're because a 401 can only create a cash pool. It can never create cash flow.
Yes.
In order to live, you've got to have cash flow, because bills come every month and you need income that comes every month. If you just have a pile of cash and all you can do is pinch off of it, well, you don't know how long you're going to live. And so it's never, you have to understand how something was designed to be used, or otherwise you'll end up mixing up spoons and shovels. If you look at the makeup of a spoon and a shovel, both have a scoop and a handle. But if you interuse those, right, you're going to try to dig a hole with a spoon. You're going to be frustrated. Try to eat cereal with a shovel. You're going to be frustrated. You got to understand how things are intended to be used so you can get maximum results.
Yes, 100%. That's that mindset is just another level. One thing that you had also talked about, and this is kind of a transition. You had mentioned you correlated slavery kind of to being an employee, and it was like a. I just want you to can you talk, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Because so people who were enslaved, right, they came here, they were told what time to wake up, what they had to do, what time they could go to sleep, and their next generation was in line for that, right? Someone provided them with a place to stay. It wasn't the best living arrangement. Someone provided their food. It wasn't the best food. And all they've done now, right, is they let you pick your plantation, right? We call that a job interview, right? And someone still provides you a paycheck, but most of your paycheck goes back toward the housing that you were once getting for free, the food and clothing that you were once getting for free. So it's just a sleight of hand. Economically, you're still no more progressive than you were then, right? Mm-hmm. Just because I got to pick my plantation doesn't mean I'm no longer a slave.
Yes. and that whole concept, you were saying too, that the slavery was taught, based on how you were being treated. And it was like,
slavery has very little to do with how they treated you and everything to do with their ability to make money off of you.
Yeah.
It was an economic device more than it was a social engineering type of device. It's all based on economics, right? In order to make money in any business, you've got to be able to leverage other people's times and skills, right? And if I can leverage yours by only providing housing, food, and clothing, right? Again, all a day job does now is give you a paycheck and say, hey, most of that's coming back to us in the form of housing, food, and clothing. But economically, someone else is still making significantly more money off of your ability, your time, and your skill set. Now, the worst part about slavery versus today is that in slavery, someone else picked the plantation for you. Today, we will get ourselves into debt going to school so that we can apply for the plantation. We're literally competing for our spot in the field. You've got to understand that literally you go into debt to make to get a job, to qualify for a job, to pay off that debt. That's circular reasoning. Like, how does that make sense? And then a degree of any kind can only, the best case scenario for a degree is to be an employee. Degrees are not for business owners. We don't need them. Degrees are not for investors. We don't need them. There's no form of investing or business ownership that requires a degree. I can own a law firm right now. I don't even need to own the building. I rent out the building, I line up the cases, and then I have people who have passed the bar to actually work the cases. I own the firm, they do the work.
That just blew my mind. I just thought about this. So when you get a degree, you usually have to go show that to your new employer. Like before, like basically say, I have this degree, I'm qualified for this position. Alex, all the business that you've started, have you ever had to go show your degree, your civil engineering degree, and say, hey, I want to be this business owner. Can I please get started and apply?
It's a game for people who plan on being employees, man.
And you know what, too? That whole system was designed by the rich. Like that whole system of the number one, the school system itself is flawed because it was designed by, Rockefeller and Carnegie and like all those guys to actually create conformity within society and have, the masses. That's when assembly line production became prominent. Henry Ford, all that stuff. And like they had the General Education Board, and then that essentially like
determines your curriculum.
Exactly. And
you
so
ever
now
notice that entrepreneurship is never on the curriculum? Well, if it is, here's the thing. Or if it is, and this is the worst part, people are learning entrepreneurship from employees. Mm-hmm. If you're an employee teaching entrepreneurship, you didn't do it well enough.
Oh man. Now we talk about that too, though, because we say that the real teachers are the ones that are actually out there doing it, and the teachers that are like the ones that are the employees teaching it. It's like, bro, why would I listen to you teaching me how to do something that you're not even doing your own self? Like that's I don't understand. Like you would never go and somebody
say to an employee because we all start there, but sure. I will tell you that these financial gurus who are have a day job and that type of thing, their level of freedom. That they can't get you to a place they've never been, and I'm just trying to learn from people who have been where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
Right. So it has nothing to do with chiding people who have a day job or anything like that. Hey, if you feel like, hey, the best use of my life is to work for this company, then do that. When I talk to people, I'm talking to the people who know within their hearts that what they're doing is not who were where I was, where I know this is not the best use of my time. Mm-hmm. I am capable of doing something more. And it's either my fear or comfort or ignorance, right? It's just what I don't know that's causing me to be stuck where I am. And that's my target audience. I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone who feels as though the best use of their life is to be an employee. If that's between you and your maker. I'm only talking to people who know that, hey, this is not it. This is not the end all be all for me.
Yeah. The problem too is that that's like the pinnacle or the glory for a lot of society. It's like, oh, I got this job now that's paying me 6 figures, or I'm able to use this job to go do this or whatever. It's like, because I even look at like obviously with like pro athletes and entertainers, people that earn a lot of money, at the end of the day, once they stop, the money stops. Mm-hmm. So that it's all a scam at every level.
At every level, because we have more young people who aspire to be high paid employees when the option to be an owner is on the table. Whenever you ever heard a little black boy say, hey, I want to own the NFL, or I want to own an NFL team, or I want to own an NBA team, we aspire to be employees at every level. We don't because we've been taught we were brought over here to be owned. So to the point where we're indifferent to ownership. Mm-hmm. We think that it doesn't matter who owns what. Hey, well, it doesn't matter if we don't own it as long as we participate. It does matter who owns it. If it didn't matter who owned it, they would have brought you over here and told you that you owned the land instead of them.
Wow. That's real. It's like, so, okay, we're going to kind of wrap it up with the Fast Five. So this is where we just ask you 5 questions. You answer each one in 60 seconds or less. and we rock out with it. So
Okay.
I'll take the first one, and then Marlon take the next one, and then we kind of alternate. So first question is, what does success mean to you?
Success means putting my future generations in a position where they never have to work, where they own, and then they have the best. They can pursue the best use of their life based on their own individual purpose. It may not be real estate, and it may not be investing, but it's going to be something that gives back to people, something that they own, and something that helps society as a whole.
Ownership. Love it. All right, number 2. What's your favorite money or business book?
Favorite money or business book? You know what? There's a book, The Peebles Principles, by Don Peebles. Favorite book. I just read it here recently this year, and it really opened up my mind. And one of the things, without giving the book away, one of the things that he says when it comes to real estate investing is, he says it without saying it, so he infers it. If it doesn't require political influence, the deal is not big enough.
So what can you kind of go into that real quick?
Sure. So all of your bigger deals are going to be commercial deals, not residential. That's first and foremost, right? Because everyone prefers to live near where they work or go to school. And where you work or go to school is commercial property. So all of your bigger deals are going to be commercial deals, and commercial deals require buy-in from the city, because every city has an objective, a plan of how they want their city built up and what's going to be the hot spot. They have plans for that. In order to make any type of real high dollar commercial deals, you're going to have to get buy-in from the political scene in that particular location. They've got to say, hey, yes, we're going to approve this commercial entity to exist in our city limits.
Got you, man. Okay.
Writing that one down. I might check that one out myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he breaks it down step by step how he did it without money. You have to know the right people.
Yeah, for sure. So then, third question: would you rather have $1,000 a week for life, or would you want $1 million a day?
$1 million a day.
Bro, he ain't even think about that. Like, I already know my answer.
Yeah, no, $1 million a day, and it's only because I know how to create more than $1,000 a week from $1 million today.
Yeah.
So it's my confidence and my skill set to monetize and to create my own residual income. I don't need someone to create it for me.
Yeah, it just goes back to that whole thing we was talking about earlier.
Love it, man. All right, so number 4. If you could go back and change anything about your journey, what would it be?
Man, I would like to think that everything served a good purpose. But if I could change one thing without changing the rest, it would definitely be getting married, bro. I think marriage is a great entity. I don't think that everyone makes a good significant other. It's just like parenting, right? Having kids is a great thing. I don't think that everyone makes a great parent. So if I could change anything in my journey without changing anything else, it would have been who I married.
Mm-hmm.
All right, got you. Got you. So then, where can people find out more about you?
You can definitely find out more about me on Instagram, which is at the letter J Johnson Says, SAYS. Same thing for Facebook, facebook.com/J Johnson Says.
Cool. Well, man, this was an amazing episode, man. I definitely everything that I expected it to be. You came on here and you was dropping gems. That's probably gonna be the title of this podcast, dropping gems, because that's all you did, man. Like I said, everything you was talking about was like. See, the reason I really wanted to bring you on here is because even more so than what you're doing with real estate is it's all about the mindset. We preach this all the time, but everything with this whole journey to financial freedom, generational wealth is all about the mindset, and it's applicable in every aspect. So I think you are a disciple when it comes to that, and just preaching that gospel about mindset. And so I appreciate you coming on here and just spitting that free game, man. I
appreciate you and Marlon having me. It's always my pleasure. I'm always humbled to be able to speak to people and help them on their journey.
Love it, man. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Have a good one. Man, I am blown away by this, man. That was another great episode. I say this every time, but there's literally nothing I can say after these things. Like that's the only words to describe these episodes. And this one was like, man, dropping gems for real. Everything. And I think what I take from all the stuff that we talked about was, I think everyone should look at this kind of as like there's two aspects to a lot of the stuff he was saying, right? because a lot of stuff he was talking, like I think about it like this. Robert Kiyosaki's book, How to Increase Your Financial IQ, he talks about financial intelligence and financial IQ, right? There's a difference. Financial intelligence is essentially the information that you know and the knowledge that you have in your head to acquire and preserve your wealth, right? But financial IQ is how you quantify and measure that knowledge, right? So I the reason I say that is because like from this episode, I got like there's the mental intelligence part of this episode, right? And that was like everything he talked about, right? All the stuff he was talking about was like the intelligence part in terms of the financial literacy to actually like and I'm trying to say this in a way that it doesn't go over people's head, but you know, to kind of advance yourself. But then there's the financial IQ part, which is kind of how you take what he said and you go apply it, right? And you go apply this now to actually and take action off of it. And that's why we say at the end of every episode, now it's time to take action. So that's what I think everyone should take from this, among all the other stuff that he was saying. It's just find out how you can take this stuff and apply it to your life, because it is applicable in some way.
Yep. And I mean, just I guess to tag on to what you're saying, like his whole context, like his entire, all the knowledge that he has, and just like the way that he's expanded his context to be able to think the way he does, has really just like revolutionized the way that he, for one, impacts like his future generations to come. Like he's gonna have them well set up because of just the way that he's thinking, and then also the people that's working around him. Like I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast in general, but like I know we spoke to him and says that he doesn't have employees. This dude literally says he works with other business associates. Like that's his mindset. He's trying to eliminate the employee mentality altogether. Yeah. And like saying that we need to have ownership. Like he's promoting ownership. That's like one of his big things that he prides himself on. And honestly, also he eliminates all excuses, because for him knowing where he came from, this dude's talking about he was warming up freaking water bowls in the microwave to shower with, bro. Like this dude literally came from rock bottom and says, bro, if I can do this, what's your excuse? If I can come from this, what is somebody else's excuse? And he's just not going to tolerate anything less, because he knows that people are going to just make excuses for themselves when they have the capabilities of achieving more for themselves. Yeah.
And I think if you listen to this episode, that should literally eliminate all your excuses. Maybe that could be the title of this episode too, in addition to dropping gems.
Yeah.
But this episode could literally, it should eliminate all your excuses as to why you can't get started or why you can't, advance your life economically. So I hope y'all got a ton of value from that one. I definitely did. You know, we got to kick it for a long time after we talked. So that's why I love doing these things, man. It's like y'all think y'all getting a lot. I'm getting a lot from these. So, shout out to this podcast. Shout out to everybody listening right now. But yes. Hope y'all enjoyed this episode. That's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated us 5 stars and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also find out more info about us on Twitter at The Monopolizers or on Instagram at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged, so check that out and share those posts. But until then, we out of here.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.